Let's talk about sex energy. What is sex energy? Well, sexuality is a frequency range. It's part of the human experiential zone. And not just humans, of course, other species too. The way humans deal with this range is widely varied. Some seek to suppress it or control it. So others want to commercialize it, use it for profit. Still others want to use it for personal gain. And still others just want to understand it. Others still just want to soak it up and enjoy it, and others maybe even wish it would go away or would like to ignore it or pretend it doesn't exist. But it seems fair to say it's here in this reality in our lives. It's hard to not notice that this is a reality that includes a lot of sex energy and a lot of sexuality in terms of how it shows up through our bodies expressing it. You have a choice, though, in how you will engage with this energy. You can choose not to engage with it. You can choose to engage with it. And within that choice to engage with it, you can make a lot of sub-choices there too, all the different ways of engaging with it. And you can even explore what the edges of it are for you. You know, how do you incorporate sex energy into your life, if at all? What areas does it spill over into? What else does it touch? What does it connect with? It has fuzzy edges, or at least it certainly can. For instance, kissing. You know, if you kiss someone, does it have to involve sex energy? I would say no. You can give a very non-sexual kiss, and you also have the option to give a very sexual kiss. You can touch in a non-sexual way. You can touch in a sexual way. You can speak in a sexual way. You can speak in a non-sexual way. So it's sort of a layering onto other things you might do anyway, but it also has a special zone where certain activities we would say, okay, those are clearly sexual. You know, sort of, this is right in the middle of its zone. You wouldn't say that's not sexual, like the act of intercourse itself. You're like, okay, that's pretty sexual right there. But then as you get further and further out, you get to choose how much you want to extend that sex energy into other areas of your life. And it's a personal choice. There is no right or wrong answer for everyone. However, I would say there is a zone of rightness for you at this time in your life right now. That zone could change, and probably will, may shift over time, what you want to explore there. But this is always something that's being offered by life. It's being offered by your reality. Now, that offer could take many different forms. Sometimes sex energy is extremely forceful, at least it can seem that way on the human level, and it may seem to just, penetrate into your space and inject itself into your space whether you want it to be there or not. For others, it may seem very, very distant, and even if they pursue it, it still seems to run away from them or stay clear of them. And so the invitation here is really to explore what you want your relationship with sex energy to be and with its presence in your life. What I would suggest is not getting so attached to what form it takes in terms of how it shows up in, with a partner or the lack thereof or multiple partners, but rather focus on the relationship you want to have with that energy itself and the vibes you want to connect with around it too. For instance, one thing I really like in terms of connecting with sex energy is I find it very important to build trust with it. A lot of people, including myself, have had trust wounds in the past with sex energy, where you've reached out in a certain direction or something has reached out to you, and the way things went were not at all how you wanted it to go, and you felt that you could no longer trust this aspect of life. You may limit that to, one or more partners that you felt were the cause or, the link to that trust wound space, or you might generalize it quite a bit and realize, oh, I can't trust this gender anymore, or I can't trust this group of people, or I can't trust the space of sexuality itself, or I can't trust myself in a sexual space or working with sex energy. And so trust wounds are really, really common in this space. I've had them myself too. And so as you lean into the space, you have two aspects to it. One is the positive side, the creative side, the side that you want to explore, that you want to cultivate, that you want to open up, the energies that you weave in. That in itself is a big undertaking because sexuality can be so nuanced, and it has so many subtleties to it, and so many other energies can be woven into it. There is a huge variety of the tapestry of experiences you can have in this space if you lean into it enough. And on the other hand, there's also the side of blocks and filters and trust wounds. And if you lean in on the positive side alone, you'll generally find that what holds you back is not your lack of effort or positivity, but it's your anchoring in your own human matrix. You know, you're an energy being, and how your energy in your own body and your own beingness is linked up, strongly connected to limits, filters, blocks, trust wounds, that sort of thing. And so a big part of exploring any kind of energy that's experiential, including and especially sex energy, is identifying, and when you're ready, allowing those anchors that hold you back from experiencing and exploring what you really want to experience and explore, to allow them to let go and to release. You could try to force them out, but I find there's sort of a timing that happens where you invite something to release and then allow it space. And when it's ready to release, it will. If you try to force it out prematurely, try to rid yourself of it, treat it like it's some kind of curse you have, some scourge in your mind, in your memories, in your consciousness, in your attitude, in your energy field, that usually just anchors it in further, because the energy doesn't necessarily want to let go that way. And these energies, you know, these blocking energies, I regard them as extremely purposeful. Like I see with enough time and patience and the wisdom of, you know, getting some space from an experience and having some distance and time from it, I see how they really are purposeful, and they're teachers, the blocks and the filters. They're here to limit us to certain areas and to allow us to have certain constraints. And even if it feels like, you know, a frustrating space to be, like I've certainly, you know, met my share of people who have frustrating sex lives, and that they're just not getting the experience they want. They would really like to have what they might call sexual abundance, and it's just showing up as sexual scarcity. And what I suggest in those situations is, instead of trying to force your way out of scarcity, or, you know, manifest your way out of it or intend your way out of it, look instead to the block side and recognize that there's a reason those blocks are there. There's a reason those trauma experiences or those trust wounds are there. And what they do is they send us down a different path in life. And again, as I mentioned before, when those blocks and traumas and trust wounds are ready to release, they will. And it's not necessarily entirely up to you. Even if you put your whole consciousness behind it, there may be another part of you, I like to think of it as my higher self, may step in and say, no. They'll say, no, Steve, you know, your human self, you need to keep experiencing those blocks and filters for a while. They're purposeful. They're guiding you down a different path. So I could see how, you know, having certain experiences in my life directed me down a different course of action. For example, you know, I went to 12 years of Catholic school growing up, and that included 4 years of high school at an all-boys high school. And I'm very straight, so there was no, you know, I didn't really have much of a romantic interest. There's not a chance for that to really blossom. There were no girls my age that I knew in my neighborhood, and there was nobody on my block, you know, just nothing in that space. And the only thing that came through during that time was, at least I got to, you know, go to a prom, which was with a girl from another Catholic high school, my sister's school, that I was tutoring. So I was able to at least found one match I was able to invite to prom and go to prom. And then that was it. You know, it was very limited experience during those formative years of my life. And my first college experience was really crazy all over the place, but it was not sexual or romantic. It was getting into shoplifting and drinking and playing poker late at night and getting arrested 4 times in 18 months. It was a wild ride and a lot of fun, and getting kicked out of school, kicked out of college when I was going to UC Berkeley. But it was not a sexual space that I was exploring at that time. It was only a bit later in life, in my early 20s, where that area of life finally started opening up. And then I was like, okay, now I'm in the sexual space. And it's been an interesting ride ever since, because with my upbringing, I was kind of an attitude like, it's going to be a miracle if I ever get, you know, a sex partner, a romantic partner, a relationship partner. I was just sort of setting up for life as a single person. And, you know, now I'm on my second marriage, and I've spent, you know, 30 years of my life in, you know, in sexual relationships plus, you know, and it's been beautiful. And it's been, you know, not scarce. It's been, I'd say, the opposite of scarce. Being in an open relationship on top of that. And the way it showed up, it was really beautiful. It's like how life steered me down a pathway that was very different than what I might have consciously chosen. And having, you know, limitations and feeling, you know, off kilter, feeling really incompetent in this space, what that did, and even having some trust wound-like experiences where, you know, if I reached out to try to connect, my hand was slapped back, you know, essentially. I won't go into those details because there's stories I've shared before, but, you know, kind of just basically saying, all right, I need to back off, you know, from the world of sexuality, which for me was like the world of women. And if I need to, I'll just take care of myself. And that was, you know, just the kind of reality I am, you know, accepted. But what ended up happening was, you know, I got invited into it by women. Like when I stopped being the person thinking that I have to go and pursue and chase and, you know, invest in that space and ask people out. And when I just said I give up on that and stopped, then, you know, I found it wasn't difficult to find this space opening up where women would come to me and express interest. And I was very cautious at first and a bit skittish even. I remember in college when some woman invited me to study. This is my second time at college. Some woman invited me to study and study together. And she reached out, you know, to touch my arm during our study session because I said, sure, why not? And I realized, oh, she has something on her mind other than just studying, the way she was sort of, you know, caressing my arm. And I honestly freaked out a bit and I made an excuse to leave right away and checked out of there. And then this is kind of sad, but I honestly just avoided her for the entire rest of the semester. Never talked to her again. That's, you know, how far gone I was in that space of just having trust wounds and not trusting anything of a sexual or romantic nature. It wasn't really a conscious choice. It's just my body would freeze up and I would feel like very, very, very uncomfortable in that space. And I would just have to get the hell out of there. Like I need to be somewhere else. And it took a long time, a long path back to work on it. But what invited me to work on it was actual women, you know, like inviting me to face that, to deal with that trust wound. And I realized that was a really powerful experience to have that I might not have otherwise landed upon in my life because I sort of shut down that area of my life. You know, I backed off and I cooled my jets, so to speak, and let the sex energy come to me and invite me in. And I found that's been the case in a lot of these interesting areas of life where we can incur trust wounds and it makes us want to back off. And my advice is, if it feels like it's right to back off, then back off. You know, let it come, let it re-invite you, let it come to you and invite you back in. And in the meantime, look for the hidden beauty, the lessons in the experience of that backing off experience. And so while I was in that space of, say, not connecting with girls or women at the time, like in high school and college, I invested my energy in other directions. I invested in academics. I invested in other aspects of my social life. I had really great friends all through that time. I've never been without friends. I've never had to worry about loneliness. Even in my own company, I just feel very comfortable. I just don't get loneliness. Loneliness is just not a vibe I resonate with. And so it was kind of an invitation to explore that space, the space of, you know, how are you with your friends in platonic relationships when you just turn down or turn off the relationship with sexual energy, you can turn up other energies in your life. So I turned up all these other energies and I had a chance to explore them and experience them. That included things like creativity and becoming an entrepreneur and not getting, you know, I haven't had a job or a boss since 1992. So over 30 years of just being independent as a creator. And I think a lot of that would not have flowed through if I didn't have those blocks in place that sort of prevented me from exploring and experiencing as much in the realm of sexuality. And I only understood later in life, really not till my 40s or 50s. I'm in my early 50s now, and I wasn't till, you know, much later in life that I understood what a gift it was and what a blessing it was, and also how important it was. Because as those blocks started to be lifted and removed and relaxed and eased up, and I began flowing really easily and effortlessly through this world of sexuality and having beautiful, beautiful connections, especially with my wife, Rochelle. Just a most amazing sex life. It's really, really over the top and it's really, really delicious. I'll just leave it at that for now. But I realized also that if I didn't weave in those other frequencies, if I didn't have time and space to work on friendship and creativity, and, you know, expressing my courage in other ways, getting into public speaking and so on. If I didn't have a chance to do those, I would have been way, way, way too in love with sex energy, because when it came back, it was like an old friend coming back into my life, as if, as if it was something I'd already engaged with in a previous life and had a really beautiful, flowing, natural relationship with it, where it was very trusting and very strong. Because when that came back, it came back with a vengeance. It came back like, like here it is. And I realized when I was younger, I would not have been prepared to have good boundaries with that kind of energy. It would have taken me over. I would have just been, super slutty all the time. And I see that aspect of my life now. However, because of those other experiences and because of having a chance to learn balance and to learn to, have a number of years, especially like formative years, late teens, very early 20s, not having sex energy as a big presence in my life, it gave me a chance to learn to explore those other frequencies that I think from my higher self perspective, wanted to weave into my human life this time. And then it gave me a chance to add back the sex energy and balance it along with everything else. Instead of, if I introduced it earlier, it would have been extremely unbalancing. I know I would have gotten, I know myself, I would have just dove into that completely and screw everything else in life. And, I would have had some really, really fun experiences. But the experience I had at college was sort of showing me something in the range of that sex energy, like the shoplifting energy. It was in many ways similar. I know that might sound weird if you've never done shoplifting before. I'm not saying that sex is in the criminal space, but it was in the space of courage, of adrenaline, of the rush of it, of intensity, of stimulation, of, I don't know, it gave me a really sense of actually creating a deeper connection with myself and with a certain part of myself, like this wildness in myself, this, throw caution to the wind part of me that's just like, screw it, I don't care, what happens, let's just dive in and experience it for the intensity, for the sheer stimulation of it. And I could see myself, doing sex and sexuality in a very unbalanced way if that was allowed to come through into my life. Even a little bit, I would have just gone like, oh, here it is. Take it, capture it. So it trickled in later, and little bit, like a drip feed of it, until I could learn to weave it in and balance it more. And then when I felt like, yeah, now it's ready to amp up, then boy, it just like flipped into, high gear and floored it. And that's been amazing and fun to keep up. And, now it's like this month is, not counting the sex days, but counting like the day off, the very limited number of days off from it. And just kind of balancing that in and realizing like it is a good idea. It doesn't feel like you have to do an Apple Watch challenge where you got to do every day in a row. Just like chill yourself now and then, and listen to yourself, listen to your body, and say, am I doing this in a balanced way? But also finding like when it kicks in and you have the other balancing mechanisms in place, and you're ready for it, then that layering can be extremely wondrous and extremely beautiful. And I don't find it so much about like self-discipline or anything like that, or needing to even declare boundaries, but it's really a whole host of skills about vibrational management. And that's what I love about sex energy and sexuality, is that it teaches me so much vibrationally. It teaches me lessons that I won't necessarily get with the same level of potency in other areas of life, but when they come through in the space of sexuality, they're well learned. Sexuality is a very intimate space. It's a very vulnerable space, but it can be a lot of different things. And so I found that the things I learned in the creative space, like what do I want to create? What kind of business do I want to build? What kind of life do I want to create? What kind of friends do I want to have? When I learned to make good vibrational choices there, from the vibes on down, like not focusing on the objective level, but focusing on the inner experience first, and what I wanted to feel in my human energy matrix, what I wanted to like sense as I went through my days, what kind of vibes I wanted to, have flowing through me and into, in my life and out of my life. That awareness from the creative space flowed over into the space of sexuality. And then I began looking at it more of a tapestry, seeing like, oh, what do I want to create with the space, and who are the right people to create with, and finding that, with consent, you can do so many different things. You can have so many types of experiences. And there was so much to unload there. And I found that I kept leaning on previous experiences from other aspects of life to navigate the sexual space in a way I found intelligent and also like rich and juicy and abundant. And a good example would be just figuring out what I liked and also not relying so much on the opinions of others and not relying on other people's expectations or assumptions or all the stuff that was drilled into me and telling me what I could or couldn't do. And when I explored, my path in business and my creative work, I realized like this is a wide open canvas and there's so many paintbrushes you can pick up, so many different colors you can paint with. And so I moved into the space of what felt right to me and what felt good to me and what felt aligned and what felt that was beautiful for the people who enjoyed and appreciated my creative work. Really good for the audience, good for me, and just flowing with that space of abundance and making a lot of interesting, sometimes very tricky decisions, sometimes very subtle decisions along the way of here's the energy space I wanted to move into. And I had to learn things like, setting proper boundaries and enforcing them as needed and moving into the spaces that really felt right to me, not just good, but right. Like this is the right choice. And really getting a clear sense of that, like, moving away from guessing about which is the right direction to go and having more of a sense of inner knowingness. It really opened up my intuition because I got to see what happened when I would feel this sense of the right path and not do it and then essentially be punished by life for it or learn my lessons, learn not to go against my intuition. And in the space of sexuality, I found that's all amplified, like even more. You go against your intuition in that space and it can be dreadful, but you go with the flow of your intuition and you bring in the vibes you want and you really listen to yourself. It can be extremely beautiful. And there were so many surprises in that space that from the outside looking in, as I was peering into it, but not really feeling like it was abundant at all in my life and feeling I was in the scarcity side of it, I made a lot of assumptions about what it would be like and what was important. And I thought, things like confidence are really important and courage. You got to reach out, you got to invite, you got to ask. Consent, of course, looked important, still is. And, what I found was most important on the inside, I might call sensitivity, like really sensing, really listening to what I feel in my body, what I feel in my heart, and paying attention to signals that other people are emitting. Even if it's not necessarily coming through their words or their body language, just sensing and being very sensitive. And I found that that was something that really helped to open up that aspect of life. And it was also about sensing what I like and sensing what feels good to me and noticing that with some things that, other people thought would be a great experience, when I got myself into experiences like that, I just felt like this is not right for me. And other times I got myself into experiences and I thought, wow, this is way better than I thought. I thought it would be good, and it was actually even more delicious. And partly that has to do with different frequencies that I overlooked or didn't know about that could be woven into it. Or, you learn about sexuality from other people, or you learn about it from, say, adult media, and it can be very, very different when you are in an experience for yourself. For instance, many years ago, I guess it was something like 13 years ago, Rochelle and I had our first threesome and with another woman. And, I thought it would be like hot and sexy and stuff like that. And like, you might see in a porn video. And there were some aspects like that. But what I wasn't prepared for was just like how loving it would be. And it was really loving and kind and caring and gentle and not pushy at all. And my favorite part was just like, cuddling one woman in each arm. I was just laying on my back on the bed and just cuddling them, and they were cuddled up against me, and just feeling like this is, it's not like a sense of intense sexual energy. It was just this feeling of love, like unconditional love. It's like one of the most beautiful experiences that I've ever had. It's just like this feeling of love and this cuddly vibes and stuff like that. And also just, personalizing things, carving out your own experience and realizing that you just need consent from the people you're doing things with, that you're exploring with. And then within that space, you're free to explore. And you don't have to worry about other people's judgments in that space. And I've certainly, gotten a lot of judgment for exploring this part of my life. And I've written, articles on my blog about sexuality, like, domination submission play or something, which is something I'm really into. And I've just been into that like pretty much my entire adult life. So just something that I love and enjoy. It heightens the intensity of it. I love intensity on the physical side, but I also love depth of emotion, and I love love. I love cuddling as part of it, and touch, and just connection, and intimacy, and warmth, and trust. Like all of that I love having in the space. And I know a bunch of other people who they're very, happy and abundant in their sex lives too, and they balance things in a very different part of the spectrum. For them, it's more about, they don't care about love. They're like, I don't need that. I just want the intensity of it, the passion, the excitement, the fun, or the variety. And they want lots and lots of variety. And I just, find my own range there that I like. And I just keep doing more of what I like and then kind of exploring around the edges of that with people who like something similar. And I also found it was kind of important to filter for aligned partners and to ask for what I want as I got more clarity about that. For instance, one thing I remember realizing is that, the pathway to sexual abundance for me it's not about the number of partners. It's really about the depth of yeses in terms of what I want. And so if I'm talking to somebody about, what I might want to explore or experience, and it's like, a bunch of, maybe some yeses, but some nos, then I realize it's going to be a partial match. Then I'm like, okay, I can only explore a limited range with her. And if it's somebody who it's like everything I might want to explore or experience, it's just nothing but yeses. Where her range of what she's willing and interested in experiencing with me is even beyond my asks. Like it's, I'm asking for everything I want and all that is yes. And she's like, and what else? And then I'm like, I don't know. I haven't come up with anything more than that. Let's start with that. So then we do all that. And that's basically how my relationship with Rochelle has been. When she and I first connected in person with any kind of romantic or sexual interest, we were in bed together within an hour. It's just like really boom, instant. Didn't date first or, go out for coffee first or anything like that. It's just like, come on over and let's play together. And that was just such a beautiful experience. We got married, several years ago, and it's, for us in our lives, like love energy and sex energy, they're the same energy. Like their frequency ranges overlap so much that for all intents and purposes, it's the same. And we really, we tone that down around other people, but in our own lives, it's just part of every single day. It's like every day is rich in sex energy in our lives. It's probably why I'm so freaking happy. It's certainly one reason. But I love the space of sex energy when it works. The trust, when you get the trust really deep and you trust the energy that you're working with, and you even trust the trust wounds that you had in the past, and you see how they were purposeful, and you forgive them, and you forgive other people, for doing things to you if you thought something was done to you. You let go of the victim mindset, and you realize, all right, well, even if this happened, I have a choice. I could turn against life and basically not trust it. I could turn against people, certain people, and just not trust this space. I could turn against my own sexuality and not trust it so much, and I can really climb up in that area. And that may be the right choice for a while. And then turn that energy somewhere else, go explore something else. And you may eventually circle back where you start realizing, all right, this area is asking for healing. It's asking for a different kind of resolution. It wants to open up. It wants to flow back into my life again. And that's when you have the option to say, all right, I'm going to cooperate with that. Maybe you'll see life dropping you hints and clues, like people flirting with you a little bit more. You start feeling your own energy wanting to open up in that direction. Maybe it's an internal signal. You start feeling it's about time. I want to, open up this area of life. You could do it with your own intentions too. You can practice some intentionality. You can say, all right, I want to open up to the flow of sexual abundance. And a really powerful intention, as I mentioned before, is to build trust with it, or rebuild trust with it, or strengthen or deepen trust with it. I find that any kind of frequency range in human experience, one of the most important things I want to do with it is build trust with it. So as I've explored with psychedelics, if I ever try anything new, which I have, this year I tried LSD for the first time, and I've done some more journeys with MDMA, and one of the most important things was build trust with it. Like if I'm going into that space of its energy and I don't trust it, that becomes part of the experience. And if you go into the space of sex energy and sexuality and you don't trust it, you have fear about it, you have anxiety about it, you have worry about it, and you bring that energy into the space, Whether you want to do that or not, if it's coming along with you, then that becomes part of the experience. And that's not all bad, because you bring fear into the space, you bring worry into the space, and sexual energy is a place where those can be worked through. It's challenging. It's not easy. It's not the easiest frequency range to bring fear energy into. You know, it can lead to even more trust wounds like embarrassment or humiliation or a feeling of rejection. But it is a beautiful, beautiful crucible for working through misalignments. And it's I find it super challenging. At least I have at certain points. At this point, it's not super challenging. It's super beautiful. It's super delicious. But I wouldn't call it super challenging anymore. But in the past, it was definitely super challenging. And what made it challenging is I was resisting letting it help me unburden me of what I was no longer needing. And, you know, just limiting thoughts, feeling unattractive, like not feeling attractive to anyone really, you know, just thinking, oh, I'm just in my own space, or feeling incompetent. And I found it was not about all the objective side, like, you know, skill building and learning techniques. It was really about just getting into the vibrational space with it and feeling comfortable. It's similar to how I learned to get used to public speaking, or even just, you know, making a video like this one. You can bring a lot of nervousness to it. You can bring anxiety to it. I don't have any meaningful nervousness or anxiety doing this. I feel happy. I feel calm. I feel peaceful. I feel, I'd say most of all, connected, you know, to people, to their energy, and kind of thinking and pondering just like, you know, how these ideas will land with people, and hopefully it's helpful. That's my intention, just to be helpful. And in the space of, you know, exploring these energies, you can find yourself feeling really, you know, knocked off balance by the energies that want to come up, that want to bubble up, that want to be processed out of you and released. But if you can accept that, if you can lean into that and just realize it's part of the journey, it's part of the experience, and do your best not to resist it so much, you know, that purging of those old energies, however they want to come up, can be really beautiful. And you also have the ability to set intentions around it. So you can lean into that space and then just feel like, okay, I'm gonna let this go. And as I was learning, you know, things like public speaking and such, I learned to let go of those misaligned energies, because I realized I was bringing them into the space. Like, public speaking is not inherently dangerous for most people. It's not an area that requires you to feel fear or anxiety. You can do public speaking, you know, all you want. You can record things, make videos, share from your heart, share intimately, and not feel any nervousness or fear or anxiety. You know, I'm doing that right now. I've done that for a long, long time now. But I did bring anxiety to it in the beginning, and I found the anxiety was showing up because it wanted to leave me. It wanted to be processed out. And when I fought it and resisted it and tried to suppress it, you know, like talk myself into greater confidence, or as a friend of mine did, you know, listen to inspiring music before going up on stage. But then finding even years later, he still had the anxiety, and I was able to get past it. And the way I got past it was just realizing, like, okay, this anxiety is not my enemy. It's teaching me something. And it was a pointer to realizing, like, there are different ways of framing, speaking, and thinking about it that I don't have to bring that old energy to. I can see that the audience is always on my side. Like, you watching this, I see that you're on my side. You're not here to waste your time judging me and stuff. If you want to do that, you know, that's your thing to deal with. But I don't need that. I don't need to bring that assumption or expectation to the space. Why don't we just be friends instead? Why don't I just offer help and you receive it as such? If, you know, at least on the intentional level, it's up to you to decide, you know, which ideas here are useful for you. And if they're not useful for you, great. You can move on from them and use what works for you. And if they are useful for you, then great. You know, just take advantage of it and run with it. That's all I need from the experience. If you wrestle with sexual energy and you bring a lot of fear, worry, anxiety to it, I encourage you to see it as a crucible for working through those energies. You know, this is something that wants to come up in that space and wants to be released. And what you can also do is set intentions around that. You can ask life, you can ask the space of sexual energy to be gentler with you, if that's what you like. And so when I found things were getting a little too heated and I didn't really like how things were going or things were progressing, I invited it to slow down. And I said, we need to weave in some other energies here. I want to weave in learning this and figuring this out with gentleness, with compassion. Can we tone down the harsher frequencies? I don't want to do the harsh rejection thing. There are certain pathways I looked at that some, other people I knew were doing. And I just thought, that feels too harsh for me. That's not for me. For instance, people I knew were going out and just approaching people on the street. You might have heard of the pickup artist community. And I met people from that community, but I never was a member of that community or part of it myself by any stretch of the imagination. I would never go around hitting on women on the street or something in some public place, because just the very thought of it felt awful to me. It felt like I'm invading somebody's private space. I'm just kind of injecting and pushing my energy onto them so forcefully. And I saw other people that were proud of that, and they thought this is a good thing to do. And, you want to just push your energy out there and, claim somebody else's space and just, penetrate their space and be in it and then move them where you want them to go energetically. When I looked at that, it just felt so misaligned. I couldn't get myself to do it. And I've been able to get myself to do plenty of things that I was afraid of, and that, by leaning towards courage. But that was a space where it just felt like courage was the wrong energy to bring to it, in the sense of trying to be extra brave or even, reckless, or just, throw caution to the wind and just go and just do stuff impulsively. It just felt wrong. And so I went a way gentler path and, went through different kinds of invitations, different kind of conversations, and, especially got in the space of cuddling and gentleness and talking to people first, and then seeing if things wanted to go in a sexual direction. And if they don't, then don't take it there. But just kind of opening up more to what I felt was a better pathway for me to explore it energetically. I love touch. So just a gentleness of touch with a woman was a beautiful pathway in, sitting next to each other and cuddling and talking a little bit. And then noticing chemistry would sometimes build from there and sometimes it wouldn't. Sometimes our bodies would clearly be attracted to each other and things would want to go, in a more passionate direction. And other times it was just purely on a more platonic level, and that's where the energy wanted to stay. And I found that really beautiful. Nothing was forced. There felt no need for this kind of assertive, aggressive energy that I didn't feel right about doing at the time, and just carving my own way out there. And finding that that was rewarded, by the space of sexual energy and the frequency range of sexual relationships. And just finding a lot of beauty there. And a lot of women who came into my life, they were, partly play partners. And also I felt like they were partly teachers. I learned something from them, whether they thought of themselves that way or not. Everyone I connected with, I can't look back on any of those connections, regardless of how they went, and feel any sense of regret, because everything was like a beautiful step forward, like a beautiful invitation back into this frequency range of life, that when I really got into it and released all the blocks and the filters and the forgave and released the trust wounds, then it just felt like, this is home. This is a space I love, being so comfortable and so familiar with it. Another thing that this one was not a big deal to me, but I've definitely seen it as being a big deal to other people, is shame, the energy of shame. Some people have shame even about being interested in sexuality, or their sexual desires were shamed. Another area of shame that comes up is body shaming, shaming the way our bodies are. And I realized, for exploring sexuality, I realized I have the perfect body for what I wanted to experience, what I wanted to explore. So, I'm not a super amazing fit top model type of person, and I don't need to be. I don't want to be. And I feel like if I was that kind of person or had that kind of body, I'd probably be getting a lot of inauthentic approaches, that weren't really right for me. And instead, I feel like I have just the right body where it will filter out and deflect people who don't really want to connect with the real me and my real energy. They're looking for a more just physical level experience. And so they'll look at me and go, yeah, not quite right, and bounce away. And that's better for me, because then the ones who get through are the ones who sense something in me. I tend to, I like being sensitive to sex energy and to potential and possibilities there. And I find I tend to be really good at attracting very sensitive women, who are really good with their senses. And those are the best matches for me, women who are very intuitive, very sensitive, but also really open to exploring sexually. And the best women I explore with, they've tended to have a much wider range than I have. And so then my imagination is playing catch up with them. That's really a beautiful, I guess you could call it, problem to have, where the limitation on what you can experience sexually is how imaginative you are. Like, okay, threesomes, yeah, I've done that many times. And, orgy did that once. And it's like, okay, what else? Lots of interesting sex positions and experiences. And you've done it all that you wanted initially. And then you're like, now what else? And you have to like stretch your imagination. And I realized still, like, even there came a point like this year, I realized there was, I was still not asking for all that deep down I was interested in experiencing. I still had some blocks there. And it was actually an MDMA session that kind of opened that up. And I realized, there's these things I'm not asking for because I'm assuming it's too much to ask for. And I didn't even try it, like, with a woman, with say, my wife. And so then I just decided, let's start asking for it. Let's just speak the truth. And I found that's a really powerful thing to do with sex energy, is simply speak the truth. Speak the truth of your desires. Speak the truth of what you perceive to be your limitations. Find people where you can at least tell them the truth, even if they're not necessarily going to be potential sex partners. Start speaking your truth into that space. And that I find is really beautiful. And so, I started speaking the truth of like, here are some things I would love to experience. At least I think I would, but I haven't asked for them yet because I figured that's too much to ask and it would be a no. And then I found out the answers that were coming back was, I will gladly do that for you or with you. Like, that's no problem at all. I would think that would be wonderful. And then I'm like, wow. And then getting to have these new experiences and going, wow, all I had to do was ask. It's that simple. But finding that, there's just so many layers, like peeling an onion, of things that want to come up. And some of them are, about the releasing side of what's ready to move out, what's misaligned and wants to go. And others are about new layers of alignment that want to come in and that want to be experienced and want to keep enriching this area of life. And so I feel like I've, finally landed in a spot which is not only abundant, but just like deliciously abundant, like deliciously wonderful, like way more wonderful than I ever thought I could have when I was in my 20s. And just thinking like it was, feeling like it was something I have to claw my way to with this aggression or, bravado or confidence. And that was not my path at all. It was more just a path of acceptance and openness and humility and, invitation, but gently, just not doing things that were so jarring to me or to other people. I just felt like I didn't need that. Just keep doing gentle invites. In fact, some of my friends many years ago, more than a decade ago, they would see me having, nice results in this area of life with a very gentle approach while they were all trying to do this bravado thing and just go up to random women on the street and show off how brave they were. Have some tea for a little bit. And they would look at me and see, I'm just cuddling somebody or cuddling two women together very easily and lightly. And the women would come to me and they'd be like, how are you doing that? and so, even at events where it was like mostly men, I was speaking at like a dating relationships conference or something, I'd be cuddling with somebody. Well, the other men were all talking about their pickup skills or something. I just found that kind of silly. And it's a great thing to joke with female partners about, like, how the guys are trying so hard and yet there's a gentler way to do this. So then some of those friends described what I was doing as cuddle game, as they were taking what I was doing and transplanting it into their model. Like, obviously I'm doing something manipulative, turning cuddling into an outcome-driven, stepping stone type of goal. And it was nothing like that of the kind. To me, it was never outcome-driven. It was just like enjoyment in the moment and just leaning into feeling where the energy wanted to go next. And that's what I found is most important about sensitivity, is staying with the flow of the sex energy itself, asking it to flow into your life, asking to have a relationship with it based on trust, and then saying, I want to explore with you. I not only want to trust you, sex energy, I want to explore with you. And sex energy is, I see it as the currents which bring aligned and beautiful partners into our lives. If we focus on the energy and the vibes of the space of sexuality, and we want to build trust with it, and we want to build beautiful experiences, and we want to infuse it with love, and we want to invite all that into the space to be part of the experience, we can do that. We have that option. So that's the encouragement here as you explore sex energy. Decide what you want to make of it, and also look to your past of what has been made of with this energy already, and realize it's likely very purposeful. And even if you feel limited or cut off or closed off, instead of trying to escape from that or resisting where you are, flow with the space of where you are and keep inviting sex energy to help you. Invite it into the space, invite in whatever else you want to come with it. Compassion, I love compassion, gentleness, caring, kindness. Sex energy for me is really about connecting in the space where human beings just simply make each other feel good. So beautiful, isn't it? I mean, so simple. Just make other people feel good. I find, another thing to let go of there, this is a big one for a lot of people, it's one for me too, is letting go of neediness and clinginess. You bring neediness and clinginess into sex energy, and, it'll dance with you, perhaps, but you're going to have to experience the reflections of clingy and needy energy and what that does for you. And I found the best way to explore it, at least for me, is not having any neediness, not having any clinginess. Like even going into the space of like, if sex energy chooses to dance with me and bring partners, that's a beautiful and lovely and aligned experience. And of course, I'm going to welcome it into my life with appreciation and gratitude and a whole lot of fun and intensity too, and love and, connection and depth, and whatever it wants to go, playfulness. But if it doesn't want to bring anything or nothing is forthcoming, then I just sort of, thank it anyway and say, when you're ready, I'm open to it, but I'm not going to try to force it. And I say, all right, if it's not wanting to flow through right now, let me go focus on other areas of my life. Let me use a similar kind of, experiential flow and take the energy I would have put there into something else. So if I wanted to explore it with love or gentleness, then what else can I do with love and gentleness in some other area of life? Polish those, the relationships I have with those other vibes that I might want to bring into it. And when sex energy feels like I'm ready to receive it into my life, it comes through. It just flows through with ease. And now it feels like, I feel like it must really like me, like me lately, because it's flowing through with beautiful abundance. And now I'm having to say, now I have to be the one to put the brakes on and say, okay, I need a pause day, need a rest day. And so it's just a lovely experience to be in. And just having taken this, decades-long experience myself and being in, the most delicious spot with it at any point in my life. Like this is just the most beautiful experience of sexuality and connection and love. So wonderful, so delightful. And, knowing what a journey it can be to get there. Last piece of advice I'll share is be kind to yourself. We can really be harsh on ourselves in this area. And, there can be people judging you about it, for how you're doing or what you're doing or how you're not doing, what your body looks like, things they think you need to change. But you listen to you, you do what's right for you. The invitation is not to copy my path. It's to find your own way through this and to trust life more. You really can trust life in this space. And the more you trust life and the more you trust sex energy too, I think the more it will enhance your life, and it will come in and, open things up for you. And you can have all kinds of beautiful and delicious and delightful experiences. And most of all, you can make the experience truly your own. You don't have to bring body shaming into it. If there was a partner, coming into my life and she didn't like my body, then I would be like, then we don't connect, and that's in that way. We could do something else. But if she doesn't like my body sexually, then we don't go there. I only want to connect sexually with women who are physically and emotionally, mentally, spiritually attracted to me, all those layers, and I to them as well. And if there's not the mutual attraction, then great. We just let it go. And I found that, attraction is not as simple as it seems. It's not, we get our heads loaded with all this crap from society about what's attractive and what's not attractive, what these standards of beauty are, especially the overly commercialized standards. And I found in my path of exploring this, just all that had to go out the window. It's all bullshit, right? And the women I'm attracted to and the women that are attracted to me, the overlap of those areas, it's not something you see in beauty magazines. It's something I just feel. I feel in my body. There's certain women, when I'm around them, they just light me up. They turn me on. I can't help it. My body just is like, wow. It's like I feel this intense infusion of sex energy flowing through me when I'm with them and when I'm in their presence. My wife and I are like that with each other. We rile each other up like every day. We can't help it. Like our bodies, if we just allow them to their own devices, they just want to have sex with each other. All we have to do is just get out of the way and let them go at it. It's really quite that simple sometimes. And other people might look at us and go, well, they don't meet my standards of beauty. I wouldn't find them attractive. Who gives a fuck? um, you go after and pursue, or invite in or allow in, whichever you prefer, what is attractive to you, and pay attention to what feels attractive to you, and also pay attention to who and what is attracted to you. And we're a lot of times dummies in that area. We go after the superficial stuff, and we don't pay attention to how our bodies and our hearts and our minds, how we respond on the inside, what really lights us up, what really gets us, riled up or aroused. So that's something to pay attention to, because what it may be, the truth there may surprise you. I was surprised and also delighted by what kinds of women I've been most attracted to, and what kinds of women have been most attracted to me. I found they're unique. They're very different. They're different than anything I've learned about or saw anywhere else. They're nothing like any character I've ever seen in any kind of, romance movie or romance comedy movie. Anything about relationships. It's like I had to just erase all that stuff that I thought I knew from society, from, family, from friends. And I had to start with a blank slate and just write it from scratch, because the women that come into my life that I like and that like me, and there's strong attraction, and the ones where it's like beautiful, wonderful sexual experiences, they're just unique. They're different. There's no one else out there like them. I don't know I can't compare them to anyone or anything. They're just incredibly unique. And it feels like they're just right for me. Just what I need. So there's a, bit of a trek through the land of sex energy. And I invite you to take these ideas and, play around with them, see what you want to work with in this space. And if it's nothing, that's totally fine. And if it's something, great. Just know that I'm here for you. And if you have more questions about it and you want to see more videos on this topic, let me know. Take care.